Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for another edition of the Explore Simpson Academic Series. Tonight, we are going to be going through political science and our pre-law programs here at Simpson. My name is Maddie Cano. I'm the Assistant Director for Diversity, Inclusion, and Access. I work with multicultural students and international students. We also have Dave Williams on the call, who is an Associate Director in our admissions office. And then we also have some amazing faculty and staff, as well as a student from our political science and pre-law department. I will jump over real quick and go through kind of what we're going to run through tonight in the agenda, and then I'll kick it off to faculty and they can kind of chat a little bit about themselves and their programming. So we are going to run through kind of just some interesting, cool things that are going on in our political science department, as well as the pre-law programs. So you'll kind of get to hear a little bit about what your experience would be like at Simpson if you were to major in political science, or if you're potentially thinking about going on to law school and all of the different things that are encompassing that, as well as some of the activities. You'll get to hear a little bit from Natasha, who is a current student, about what it's like for her. And then we'll just go over some quick admissions information. If you have any questions about that, feel free to jump in at any time. Definitely utilize the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to type in any questions you have at that time. And then when we get to the Q&A, we will run through all of that. And if you're feeling super brave, go ahead and take yourself off mute and turn your camera on. You can chat with us at any time. So I will turn it over to Kedron and Adrian.
Well, thank you. And I'm Kedron Bardwell. I'm the chair of the department and also work mostly in American politics and public policy. And Adrian, you want to quickly introduce yourself and then we'll get to pre-law in a little bit.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm Adrian Gaffman. I am in political science and also in the pre-law region. So I teach our institutions-based classes and our law-based classes.
And definitely feel free, you can ask Natasha Ship, our student, a question too. Natasha, you just want to give a super brief intro and then we'll have you do more later.
Yeah, sure. My name is Natasha Ship. I am a senior here at Simpson, majoring in political science and applied philosophy, and I'm also in the honors program here. So it encompasses most things, I think.
Cool. So let me give an overview of the program. And I would say the number one question we get when students come visit or when parents come, they want to know kind of how is Simpson different than some other institutions. So how is it different than other small private colleges in the Midwest? And if they're looking at other Iowa private colleges, how is it unique? What types of programs do we have that maybe a Central, a Wartburg, a BV, or other institutions have. So we really focus on 4 highlights or things that are interesting or helpful for students at Simpson as compared to going to another institution. Number 1, the Iowa caucus experience, and I'm going to run through some examples of that. Number 2, we have a Washington, D.C. internship program, which is a well-developed program. We've had it for, I think, now almost 20 years. And lots of Simpson students take advantage of that program. We also have something very unique. We have a public policy center here on campus, and that actually sponsors what are called the Culver Fellowships, which are some scholarships for pre-law, political science, and international relations students. And a bigger tractor as well, and now not just regionally, but also just across the country, is Simpson College's speech, debate, and mock trial teams. And particularly the debate team, which has won some of the small college national championships in the last few years. And so that draws a number of students, of course, who are interested in pre-law, political science, public policy, international relations. So let me tell you all a little bit about some of those Iowa opportunities. So when you're a student here at Simpson, one of the things that we tell you you can do is take advantage of the caucus process, and we'll help you find ways to do that here. We have, in a typical year, say it's 2016 or it's 2020, we might have 15 to 20 students who are working in various ways in the caucus process. Maybe they're working for the parties, maybe they're working for a candidate. And so you'll see here one example, Jalen, who worked for the Warren campaign. We have people working for the Booker campaign. In previous years, we've had students working for Republican campaigns when there was an active Republican caucus going on. So that's one of the great opportunities, is to be able to get some experience doing field work, do some internships. Some of those were fellowships, and so we had students actually getting paid pretty good money, actually, to work during the caucus season. And even up to, we have some students continuing some of those to do Get Out the Vote through November here. Another good example of what being in central Iowa, being at the center of politics and the caucuses, it brings you a lot of opportunities to interact with people in the media. And so that's one of the things I know our students kind of celebrity watch when they're at events at Simpson. So we had Bernie Sanders, I think, twice, Liz Warren twice, and then all these national media descend on the campus. And so students get interviewed. We had a 1 hour, I think, MSNBC special. Andrea Mitchell actually filmed here a few years ago. And so students were interviewed for that. That was a cool experience. And faculty get calls. And so I get calls, and Adrian, you pretty soon you'll be getting some calls probably to talk about politics and give commentary for media. And so I've got a friend of mine who works at NBC in their politics division, and she'll just call, talk about story ideas. What do you think about this? Can you give me a quote about the Iowa caucus and how it turned out? And so it's a cool experience for students and for faculty to be that close to the caucus process. The other couple of more formalized connections that we've created here at Simpson, which again would be really unique compared to just about any other Iowa private college or even some great private colleges across the Midwest. We have an Australian connection. So we have an Australia semester that goes to Australia every 2 years. And we actually brought students back from that semester from Australia. So Australian university students came to Simpson, about 35 of them this last caucus season, and they did what's called a caucus study tour. So our students got to interact with their students. They, as you see here, got to attend some rallies. There were lots of big Bernie Sanders fans from Australia. That was one of the interesting things I learned about Australia. I was able to lead that. I was able to lead the caucus tour, but also able to lead the semester in 2018. So we took a group of Simpson students to South Australia to live and learn and study law and politics. So that's an opportunity I think probably would be coming up in another 2 or 4 years, depending on who's leading it. We also have a pretty established caucus runners program with MSNBC and NBC. And so that involves usually the communications department and political science working together to assign students with NBC to different shows that they have going on in the week before or days before the caucuses. And so this is just some of the examples from MSNBC and NBC where our students in comm, journalism, political science, and a few other fields were able to work for NBC and get to know some of these amazing journalists. So we could talk more about Iowa caucus if you want to learn more about how we get students involved in that in a little bit. In the Washington, D.C. program area, most schools have some type of either a Washington semester themselves or a Washington semester where maybe they send you off to another school and you pay tuition to that school to attend school in D.C. Ours is a very personalized program. It's also a program that we helped create ourselves. We actually have all the housing for the program. We have an on-site director, faculty director. Depends on the year, but 3 to 6 students would do that every year. And it constitutes an 8-credit internship. So you're working around the hill or you're working in an interest group. You take 8 credits of classes. And so you actually have 2 night classes that are taught by experts in the discipline. And so we might have, and this is the middle picture there is a visit we did to the State Department. We had people from the State Department teaching our Middle East politics classes. We have people who work in journalism at one of the major newspapers teaching our media and politics classes. So these are small seminars that are taught actually in the Chip House. They don't even have to leave the building. They just wake up and go to the seminar room. And they have these cool night classes that they get to take. So you're living in the Chip House. It's a 3-story brownstone about 4 blocks from the Capitol. And so actually, if you look out the window of the 3rd floor of the Chip House, you see the Capitol Dome. So really cool experience. The Simpson difference here is it's our program, and we hire the faculty. We help assign the students to the internships. And you actually don't have to pay a lot of extra fees. So you don't have to pay American University or some other DC institution to do a Washington, D.C. program. We can actually use your existing financial aid to apply to that program. And this is a picture of Jalen and Madeline and Daniel, who were our students from the past spring. Of course, theirs was interrupted about halfway through with COVID, but nothing could be done about that. They had a good experience anyway. So here's the house. Really nice. It's the one on the right, the red brick house. So if you have any questions about CHIP, let us know. Finally, if you're going to stay in Iowa mostly, maybe you're not going to go travel to Australia or you're not going to go to DC, we have plenty, just a ton of internships, field experiences, undergrad research, and then things that you can do in summers as well, whether that's here or at home. So we do have a number of students working in voter registration, and so that group at the top left you'll see is a group of Culver Fellows, and Adrian will talk about the Culver Fellowship and Culver Center in a little bit, but that's a group of students who worked through something called the Andrew Goodman Foundation to do voter registration, and they do that every caucus year and also primary and general elections for the presidency and for congressional races, even for midterms, they get involved in voter registration. We also have lots of experience available here in the Des Moines area, and so that picture is one of a class that I take down to the Capitol, and we learn about the Attorney General's office. We learn about the Secretary of State's office. We usually meet with the governor's staff. We'll get a tour of the Capitol. And so there's lots of experiences we can have just within 20 minutes of Simpson, because we're just outside of Des Moines, that really give us some access that some of those other private colleges that are a little more scattered across the state don't have. The other two pictures are of students that have done undergrad research or worked in the summer. On bottom right, there's Erin McGoffey, who just graduated and is now attending University of Virginia Law School, one of the top 10 law schools in the country, and she worked for John McCain as one of her summer internships. At bottom left is Catherine Hayes, and she's one of our top students of the last few years, a triple major, and that's a picture of Catherine when she was in the CHIP program, and she's in front of the, I believe it's the French embassy. So lots of cool experiences, and really year-round. I think that's the thing we maximize with being connected to the caucuses, is we try to make those experiences 24/7, all year, and maximizing the experience so that you just don't have classes or a GPA on your resume. You've got actual real-world experience. So I will let Professor Gathman, who is in pre-law and American institutions, talk a little bit about the Culver program, and Natasha might add a few things as well.
Okay, so as Professor Bardwell said, this is something that's unique to Simpson, this Culver Public Policy Center, and what it is a nonpartisan organization that sets up different programs on campus. So each year there's the large program, which is the Culver Lecture. Last year it was Kristen Soltis Anderson. This year it's Larry Sabato Jr., who is a well-renowned and known professor of political science at the University of Virginia and well-known for predicting elections and outcomes. And so that's coming up in 2 weeks, I believe. And we'll look forward to hearing his predictions on 2020. And each year, Culver has this huge opportunity for Culver Lecture that the students who get the fellowship are allowed to participate in, whether that's in the communications or in the planning of the event or in connecting with members of the community to bring them into the event, because it's open beyond just those at Simpson. But beyond the large lecture, the Culver Center also holds, like last night, there was a debate watch party via Zoom, but still a debate watch party, which allows students on campus to connect with each other as they're engaging with the political system. They'll also have short sessions about, well, what does this mean in the political spectrum? You know, last year, during the impeachment process, there was a pizza and policy event that was just meant to talk about, well, what is impeachment? What's the process? What's the history of it? And so all of the events led by the Culver Center aim to be nonpartisan in nature and informative about our political process. And one of the huge things that they do is also engage with voter drives and getting our students to register to vote. And Simpson was recently ranked top 5 for registered voters across the nation in terms of college campuses. So it's pretty amazing that our Culver Center has been able to do that. And we have a great head of the Culver Center, Seth Anderson, who leads all of the students in taking advantage of these opportunities. And so those are the Culver Center Fellows. And they are students that are interested in law, politics, policy, any type of civic engagement, really. And you can apply to be one of those, to be a Culver Fellow for the fall of 2021, you'll need to apply by February 1st. This includes the need for a short essay, and fellows get those great opportunities by being on committees that plan these events across campus, that plan these voter drives across campus. They also get an extra $2,000 scholarship. So not only do you get to meet all of these amazing people that come to campus and give these lectures, you get to help plan events, which looks great on your resume no matter what you're going to do, but you also get that bonus scholarship, which always looks good. So that's the Culver Center. And as Professor Bardwell also mentioned, we have a top-ranking speech and debate program, which is pretty incredible since it is a newer program to Simpson within the last decade, and yet they have built themselves up to being national champions. You can see in the photo all of the trophies that are hanging out with our students. And Simpson is lucky to have coaches that are really dedicated to creating a team atmosphere at Simpson for the speech and debate. They're there to nurture and help really organize and get prepared for these kind of events. And even if you haven't done speech and debate at all in high school or before, that does not mean you can't participate once you get to Simpson. It is wide open for students to come in with zero experience, and the coaches are more than willing to help you out in building that experience up if it's something that you're interested in. We also have the mock trial team, which if you're at all interested in law school, this is something to get engaged with, just to have that little bit of a preview of potentially what's to come in your law school years. Our speech and debate team this year, they're still participating. They are doing tournaments on Zoom or other speech and debate programs that have been built out online. So just last weekend, they competed in New York, but actually Iowa. So they are making use of the technology during this era to continue their competition. And on Sunday, they did win the tournament that they were involved in, so keeping that streak of winning alive. And traditionally, in a year when they can travel, they will travel to South Dakota, Minnesota, things like that. And then nationals, last year was supposed to be in San Diego. I think this year is in Fort Worth, Texas. So nationals is in a different city each year, which is also something the students love. And then Model UN is every spring within our International Relations Department, though you don't have to be an IR major to participate in Model UN. It is headed by our third colleague in the Political Science and International Relations Department, Professor Malgal, and our students really love representing North Korea, from what I hear, and so this is typically who they represent in this Model UN. The Model UN that Simpson attends and participates in and has won at times is in St. Louis. So each year the students go to St. Louis in February, end of February, early March, to participate in that Model UN. And it also serves as a 1 credit hour course for your spring semester. If you want more information on all of our programs or anything going on campus or some more photos of the awesome things that our students are getting to do that sometimes I'm even jealous of, you can check out we have a Facebook page, an Instagram, and a YouTube page to find out more about Simpson in general and also Simpson connected to political science. So pre-law is kind of my area. I didn't announce this, but I am a Simpson alum. I came through the political science department, and then I went to law school. So I ended up back after grad school at Simpson, which is where I wanted to be, but it's also why I take leadership in the pre-law area. So pre-law at Simpson, we don't focus on it as a major, which is a good thing. Instead, we focus on it as building skills for law school, understanding arguments, how to put them together, understanding how to break down case law, how to read cases, how to form case law into arguments and analyze them and connect them to hypothetical things. So we are building the skills that you'll need in law school outside of it being a major. Instead, we have recommended courses. And along with those recommended courses, We also just have a lot of opportunities on campus tied to our pre-law program. So we have that mock trial team that I've talked about. It is coached by an attorney, a practicing attorney in the state of Iowa. So he has that experience in the legal field and is therefore coaching our mock trial team. We have a pre-law society that is building itself up, and this year is planning to meet every other week and host speakers in the law, as well as LSAT prep sessions, admissions prep sessions, discussions about personal statements and what those should look like. I serve as the co-advisor for that with a professor in our business department who also has her law degree, and so we come from different perspectives of the law, but provide each of those recommendations moving forward for students. Our pre-law society is building itself to be strong, and our pre-law alum, who many of them went on to be attorneys, are really interested in connecting with current students as mentors and as providing events and speeches for that pre-law society. So it's a great way to get connected with other students on campus who are interested in law, even if they're in a different major. And it's a great way to connect with alumni that went through the same thing you are. Some of the CHIP internships, so that DC semester program, have been connected to the law. We've had students intern at the US Supreme Court, the Justice Department, different legal advocacy organizations. There's also different internships you can get while on Simpson's campus related to the law. The the Iowa Attorney General's office, their consumer protection unit typically is looking for some interns. So that's an area that Simpson students have interned before, as well as places like the U.S. Attorney's Office in Des Moines, different law offices if they have an undergrad internship. So those are available in DC and in Iowa. Our alumni have very competitive LSAT scores in terms of we are at or above the national average for the LSAT, which is always great, and our law placements are very high. As Professor Bardwell pointed out, one of our most recent graduates is at the University of Virginia, which is a top 10 law school, and I have no doubt that one of our seniors graduating this year will be following in those footsteps. We're just waiting on where that student decides to go. So we're very excited about that. We have students at Drake, we've had students at Creighton, at University of Virginia, at Arizona State. We might be a small program, but we are a mighty program that can get you to the schools that you want to go to. We also do have a connection with Drake University that allows you to finish your undergrad in 3 years and then do law school in 3 years. So instead of a 7-year process, which is typically what would happen, 4 years at Simpson, 3 years in law school, we have a 3-3 program where your first year at Drake counts towards credits at Simpson, which means you finish in 6 years instead of 7. So if Drake is the law school you're interested in, this is kind of a fast track to that JD. Some of the majors, since it is not, or some of the classes, since it is not a major, fit more than just political science. So when you come into my office, I'm obviously going to recommend political science classes because I think they're amazing. But I'm also going to recommend classes outside of just political science, things like CJ systems or criminal law. You have to take criminal law once you get to law school. So having some basic understanding of it before you get to law school is always going to be helpful once you get there. It's, again, about building up those skills. In political science, we have Supreme Court and the Constitution, Supreme Court and Civil Liberties. These two, I focus in on having students read case law. It's law school light. So I don't force students to answer, as would be the case in law school, but we do focus on reading 40 pages of case law for each day of class, which is about what you would read for a law school class. So trying to keep that on track and get students understanding the expectations once they get to law school. We can also, in political science, set you up with those internships, as I've talked about. The communications department has media law and ethics. I loved that class when I was a student at Simpson, so I highly encourage that one as well. We have 2 sets of business law classes, so there's business law 1, business law 2. And there's really legal classes across majors at Simpson. There's a sports law class in our sports administration major. There's an environmental law class, a conservation law class, I believe, over in the sciences. So if you're interested in a different area of law than just constitutional law, we have those aspects here at Simpson as well, and we build those out and allow those to be built out because pre-law is not a major. Since you can major in something like media and communications, you can get that aspect of the law. We can build up those skills for law school, and you get to take the classes that you were really interested in law school or in undergrad to prepare you.
Yeah, I'll take it over here and kind of start to wrap things up a little bit in terms of what it's like to be a student here at Simpson. So one of the things that I've enjoyed most throughout my time here, also I'm a Culver Fellow, that's on the screen, but one of the things that I've enjoyed most about my time here at Simpson is just the wide variety of opportunities in general and the accessibility of those opportunities. Being a Culver Fellow definitely helps with that by having all of the opportunities that Seth Anderson finds us with the Culver Center, like serving on different committees like we talked about. I've been on the political committees, the political events, getting candidates to campus, getting some of the debates to campus. We hosted the gubernatorial debate back in 2018. We do some local races too, so county supervisors we help out with, state houses, also just House representatives and Senate candidates as well. Hopefully this year we can do something similar than that, but it's looking like we're not going to be able to this cycle. But just those wide arrays of opportunities to meet candidates, to meet their campaigns, to end up working on those campaigns. There's just a wealth of opportunity here at Simpson that's really easy to tap into because of our fantastic professors, and especially our alumni as well are really great at coming back to students and helping them find opportunities. Kind of with the Culver Center, to focus on that a little bit more, there's also opportunities to travel with the Culver Center every year, at least once a year, sometimes twice. We have an opportunity to travel to Harvard to go to a voter engagement seminar, which is really wonderful. I got to do that when I was a sophomore here. And it's just really wonderful to see how Simpson plays on that national stage with our voter engagement and just the wealth of opportunities that we have. It's kind of funny to think of a small town school like Simpson being an actual player in voter engagement and things like that on the national scale, but we're recognized at Harvard because of the strength of our programs here. So it's a really great opportunity to have. And it's also really great to see Harvard's campus and learn about the history when you go on the tours and stuff. It's a really fun opportunity that a lot of students who have gone have enjoyed and then ended up citing in resumes and things like that. Also, one of the questions that I know I had when I was a first year or coming to Simpson in general was what the program looks like in general. A lot of my friends who ended up going to different schools and political science programs have a little bit more of a strict course schedule. One of the things that I've enjoyed here at Simpson is that we have a really diverse course offerings where it's really easy to pick and choose what you're most interested in and study those and really get to focus in on that. So I've been able to partner with my philosophy degree really well and taking things like political philosophy and environmental philosophy and things like that to really focus in on making sure that I'm getting the courses that I need for the future that I see myself in and making sure that that's a little bit interdisciplinary too. So one of the last things I want to touch on also was a couple of the other organizations that we have on campus that are also politically related. We do offer a Simpson College Democrats and a Simpson College Republicans. So if you're really interested in that kind of partisan politics, we offer that as well. Both groups this year have been pretty active on campus despite all of the COVID concerns. So I know both of them are having meetings and have been tabling a little bit and been making sure that we can get those volunteer opportunities to Simpson students a little bit in more specific campaign ways than the Culver Center does with their bipartisan kind of outlook on politics, which is also really great to have. And they, of course, have their own debate watch parties. They have their own policy-oriented events that they can get a little bit more partisan with. But yeah, it's a really just a wider range of things at Simpson that you wouldn't necessarily expect from a small school, but Simpson does really well that I've enjoyed through my past almost 4 years here. So yeah.
Thanks, Tasha. I was going to maybe, while the students are thinking of questions that they might want to just throw down into the chat box, can you talk a little bit more about the campaign or other experiences you've had or that you've seen your friends have? Because I think that is one of the things that's really unique is how engaged our students are in the presidential campaigns.
Yeah, I've been able to have 3 campaign internships during my time here at Simpson. which has been really wonderful. I worked on Fred Hubbell's gubernatorial campaign back in 2018 in the finance department, which is really great to be able to travel Iowa with him and just really engage with voters on the finance side of things, which is something that I worked on Secretary Clinton's presidential campaign back in 2015 and 2016 in high school. And it was definitely more of like in the campaign organizing field. But I took this internship with Hubbell's campaign because of an alumni actually who reached out to us. And I actually really love campaign finance work now, and that was something that I never thought I would be interested in. But after that race, I hopped on Senator Gillibrand's presidential campaign, and that was really wonderful. I worked in the political kind of directing department there, so I got to work on a lot of policy issues for her, help a little bit with some of the speech aspects of it, especially when she came to Iowa for things like the Iowa State Fair and things like that. And then most recently, I worked on Teresa Greenfield's Senate campaign in the finance department again. And I actually worked directly with Teresa to help with call time and that kind of big donor fundraising aspect, which was a really great experience. And we'll see how that race shapes out. But yeah, I think there are so many opportunities, and they're always active opportunities. So there's always something going on with them. They're always current, and really, especially in Iowa, it's hard to find a race that's not super contested in the past few years in Iowa. So they're always really great races to jump in on if you're interested in campaign politics. A lot of my other peers have done more nonprofit work, also a little bit of legal work as well. I'm trying to think of a lot of other organizations that we've partnered with. We have a lot of capital interns too. People really enjoy doing and kind of the more the administration aspect of things. I'm trying to think of where everybody else has gone. It's been such a crazy year with COVID.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the CHIP internships we've had. In the last few years, we've had the French Embassy, we had U.S. Supreme Court, we had some advocacy organizations. So I know one person worked for the National Organization for Women. We've had people working in the Senate, obviously, is like the big one. But honestly, we probably place more students in internships outside of the typical legislative politics now, just because we know that you can do those, and you can really do those almost any time at Simpson at the state level, or even if you go to CHIP, do the Senate. But oftentimes students, and this may be the case with you, Kyle, they have specific issues that they're really interested in and want to learn more about and want to advocate for. And so we encourage students maybe not to do just a generic legislative internship, but maybe to find an organization that's specifically working in the area that they want to work in. So that's kind of how things go. I would say that I was meeting with a student and her parent just outside of Mary Berry, which is where my office is. If you know what's going on, obviously, with COVID, I don't really like to be stuck in my office mask to mask with someone. So we went outside, and we were like 10 feet away, and we still were able to have our little campus visit. And, a lot of the questions that people ask there is, what can I do? And I did this in high school. Can I do this at Simpson? And I usually try to tell people that the place that Simpson is a place for students who did everything in high school, who were very engaged, who were well-rounded, and it's not, I would say it's not cliquey maybe to an extent here in terms of the academics. So you'll have students that are a softball player, and then they're going to run for student government, and they're involved in their major. So it's not as if the folks in sports and the people in debate and the people in journalism and the people in music, it's not like they don't interact. We're a place that's small enough where you can really have friends across campus in many different things. That's the richness of the liberal arts experience, and also being a small campus is not getting pigeonholed that you're that kid, you're that person that does this thing. And so Natasha could probably speak to that as well, but I love that students here, anything from student athletes to people in music, theater. We have lots of theater poli-sci majors for some reason. Just so it's just really, it's cool to have that and not be like maybe a larger school. You'd really be in that department, but you may not interact with people outside the department.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the really wonderful aspects of Simpson too in general is that a lot of small schools that are really high achieving schools, it's kind of like a dynamic of I have to be involved with absolutely everything, and it's super unmanageable, especially for first and second year students. They join a ton of organizations and they just can't keep up. That's really not an issue at Simpson usually for most students. There are so many opportunities to be involved, and especially if you're in sports or if you're in theater or in the music program too, they're really good at working with students to make sure that you can manage your time load and that they're flexible with your other engagements as well. So it's a lot easier to be involved in meaningful ways and with a lot of different organizations at Simpson too. And so many of them, like we've been talking about, are pretty interdisciplinary. I think most of my friends are actually outside of political science at this point in my career, maybe because they're not as inclined to talk about the debate 24/7, which has been really refreshing today. But it's not cliquey. I think that was a really good way to put it, Professor.
Well, let's jump to the last subsection we have just before we jump out of here, which is just some admissions information. And if you all think of any questions in the meantime, feel free to throw them in the chat. If you want to jump to the next slide, that'd be awesome. So honestly, everyone on this call has covered all of these amazing aspects about Simpson in one way or another. So there's really not a whole lot for me to necessarily add. They've explained it so much better than I ever could because they're living it right now. One thing that I will say that I always love telling folks this is just that the relationships that you will build on campus, not only with students, but with staff and faculty, are really incomparable to any other place that you might be looking for undergrad, just because of the opportunities that you will get at Simpson and outside of Simpson. Everyone at Simpson is really just willing to pull you up the ladder, especially in the world of politics, which can be a little cutthroat sometimes and competitive. It's really nice to just have that environment where people are supporting you regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, and really trying to make sure that you have the best opportunities that you can have. So whether it's an internship, research, you're in the CHIP program, maybe you want to take a class outside of poli-sci and, dabble in something else, you're going to have folks on campus that are going to support you all the way. Even just talking about, the other side of political science, which, if you're from Iowa, most Iowans are pretty engaged in the political process. And so if you want to jump in and intern at an organization, a lot of organizations are, community-based, very involved, in the statewide political process. So there's just a lot of opportunities for you to really take advantage of that. And the class sizes here, doesn't hurt for the relationship building either. It's been pretty nice actually, given everything with COVID, we've really been able to adjust pretty easily for our class sizes because they are typically smaller as is, which is really nice. So as you kind of get up there in those 300 level courses, your classes will be a little bit smaller. But you really have a lot of opportunities in the classroom and outside of the classroom to take advantage of any kind of leadership opportunities, which is really great. In terms of like our application process, I think most of you have kind of already gotten into that, but our apps are open now. They are free. It takes about 15 minutes to complete, which is pretty nice. Highly encourage any kind of essays that are on there. Highly encourage you to complete those just because it is going to help us kind of get to know you a little bit better. So at Simpson, we take more of a holistic approach to admissions where we're really looking at what are you going to contribute to this community. We look beyond your GPA, beyond your test scores, and really kind of want to see who you are as a person and, what sort of leader you're going to become and how can we help you get there. So anything you can tell us about yourself is always excellent. So yeah, if you want to jump to the next slide, just a couple last minute details here. Awesome. So the next thing that would really be up for all of you who have already applied and been accepted would be financial aid. So we're kind of approaching that season now. Literally tomorrow, the FAFSA drops. And so you're able to complete that. We do have an incentive, which would be the FAFSA grant. So if you complete it prior to December 1st, you get an additional $2,000 per year, which is excellent. So it just really incentivizes you to kind of get that paperwork in, and your FAFSA really is going to just tell us essentially what kind of need base you would need based on, family income, and if you have any other siblings maybe in college or things like that. So those things are always really helpful for us. If you have been admitted already, in the next couple of weeks, you will get your initial scholarship information, which is just based on your merit as a high school student. So we're going to look at GPA, potentially test scores, depending on what kind of application that you filled out. And that will really determine that first scholarship you get. And then you'll get an official package in January, early February, which will have all your information, and your counselor will walk you through all of those steps. So if you get things in the mail, feel free to reach out to them at any time. They'll be able to help you with any of that. And then lastly, if you haven't set up any kind of visit with us, so whether it's a group visit, whether it's something like this, or you want to jump on to campus individually, we highly encourage to have a personal visit. We have options open virtually. We have options open for on campus. So if your parents want to come, your family wants to come, you're more than welcome to. We're following all of the CDC guidelines, so we're perfectly safe with masks, social distancing, all that good stuff. But again, be able to come and see, what you're getting into, which is always really nice. And then all of our fall events are up on the calendar online, so feel free to jump on at any time and check those out. We have more sessions just like this, and we also have some in-person events coming up, so just feel free to check all of those out. And then follow us on social media. That's the greatest way that you can really stay in touch with us, is just making sure you're staying up to date with the college. Again, follow Simpson Poli Sci. You'll get to stay up to date with what they're doing, which is great. And yeah, so if you have any last minute questions about any of those things, feel free to let us know now. Otherwise, you can always shoot us an email. Well, we really appreciate you jumping on. Again, faculty and everyone else, thank you so much for joining us.